Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining us, and welcome to our webinar, IoT in Buildings, from Connectivity to AI and beyond. So we have a really good program here. We've got 1 hour and a couple of presentations and a Q&A after that. So we'll get started, and I think we'll have a very engaging session. So I'll just pass over to my partner, David Reynolds. He's got a few words to say, and then we'll have our first presenter.
Thanks, Wayne. A few quick points before we begin our main discussion. The IFMA, Operations and Maintenance Health and Safety Community, OMHS, and the Facility Management Consulting Council of IFMA, FMCC, promoted this event, and they brought a number of you to join us here today. We thank them. We recommend IFMA for its communities, councils, and chapters. Our purpose this morning is to check in about IoT and AI. Together, they enable comprehensive and efficient management of the built environment at levels never before practical. The capabilities that Fran and Bob will point out are becoming widely recognized in the built environment, old and new, trending toward smart and digitized. I'll listen with past projects in mind. One such was an urban campus surrounding a cathedral. Optimizing energy use and indoor environmental quality from day to day was hardly what I knew it could be. If we just had a tireless robot with good memory, knowledge, applied sensibly, plenty of sensors and controls, and who knew how to ask questions and didn't need coffee or a nap. That might be feasible now or soon. Thanks for joining us today. Back to you, Wayne.
Thanks, David. Our first presenter will be Bob Sharn. He's with Blue IoT. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Bob Sharn. I'm the founder and Chief Innovation Officer for Blue IoT. I come from an IT background, cybersecurity and data centers, and started Blue IoT about 7 years ago in order to take data, leverage data across the Internet of Things to support the blue economy and make a real difference in making buildings and places smarter. So thank you for that introduction. And now we'll get right on with the presentation. So what can IoT do for buildings? What's the purpose of the Internet of Things? And a quick definition of Internet of Things, some people love to complicate it, but the simple definition is it's basically a bunch of stuff connected to each other over the internet. So it could be a phone, a laptop, a tablet, a sensor, a device, the cloud itself, stuff connected to each other across the internet. That's simply what it is. So it doesn't have to be a complicated explanation. So what can IoT do for buildings? Well, it can do absolutely heaps. The built environment accounts for about 40% of carbon emissions globally. 40%, I mean, that's a big number. So the first thing I would say is focus on ESG and carbon emission reduction, carbon net zero. I think this is a pretty big deal today as we all try to hit our carbon targets and do what we can to really be efficient with what we have. And that includes waste for that matter. So what does that mean in the building space? We talk ESG, and at a high level, you have the big consulting firms, and they talk about high level consulting to deliver your carbon emissions by X, Y, or Z. But what about at the coalface? So in the built environment, we can say, let's start with the building management and energy management systems. They're the systems that control the buildings. So your traditional systems tend to be hardwired, and they tend to be quite expensive to manage and to operate. They're getting better. But the difference with IoT, when we have an IoT and cloud and analytics formation behind it, that means we can leverage the BMS to achieve a lot more and increase energy savings and carbon savings of between 20 and 70%, depending if it's an existing building versus a new greenfield building. Health and well-being is another aspect of ESG, and IoT again plays a huge role with wireless sensors air quality sensors based on the CO2 levels. How can we improve ventilation? How can we get rid of unnecessary bugs or mitigate the risk of the transfer of viruses and bacteria? We have the new ASHRAE standard that only came out a few weeks ago there. Again, we need a lot of help to support that. We need lots of sensors around, not just one or two or a once a year audit with a data logger in your hand as has been in the past. And what about monitoring, advisory? There's remediation, sub-metering, there's many things. Predictive maintenance, for example, if we have a sensor on a motor or a pump, a vibration sensor, we can know long before there's a problem with it, and it can be repaired rather than it breaking down and causing more problems and replacing a whole unit. People counting, motion detection, there's many things. And then even going to renewables management, again, using a range of wireless sensors across the internet, data analytics in the cloud, again, API collaboration with other applications, data sharing, data democratization, and of course, cybersecurity is a huge layer on top of all of that across all the different layers. So from a built environment perspective, what can we do? Heaps, and I'm only touching the surface. So, you know, from that point of view, there is so much more that we can do, but this is only a foretaste of what can happen. So how do we pick up data, right? We talk about connectivity. There's a whole bunch of stuff. This is an old slide, so apologies for that. You can see 2G, 3G, but it was just a nice slide. Of course, now we're on 4G, 5G, but the principles are the same. But all the other protocols we can see, you've got your traditional Ethernet, Wi-Fi, then you've got your Zigbee, and all of these protocols can be fit for purpose. So for example, we tried Zigbee in the early days, trying to determine would it be suitable for us to pick up data across a whole building. And it didn't pass the test as a whole. But if we're picking up data within a room and want to do something within a room, Zigbee is absolutely fantastic. So again, courses for courses. Some of these protocols are proprietary. We're just waiting to get back onto the page. There we go. Thank you. But out of all of these, we looked at them extensively. And, you know, like BLE Bluetooth is great, for example, when we're doing indoor asset tracking. When you've got closer range, it's absolutely fantastic. You get long battery life as well. But in terms of a general workhorse, for our purposes of monitoring buildings and spaces and even control, we find LoRa, a combination of LoRa and LoRaWAN. So LoRa is only the layer 1 hardware. And if you're going LoRaWAN, you're going the global standard. But if you're going LoRa on its own, it could be proprietary, but it may be necessary. So for example, if we're going SCADA over LoRa, which is low latency LoRa, then you need to go with something proprietary because it's not yet public domain, though that will come soon. LoRaWAN as a general standard is absolutely brilliant for many reasons. It's long range. You can go 10 kilometers or 6 miles if you're in the US. I've heard of stories of it going as much as 150 miles down a mountain slope in the Swiss Alps on one occasion, but don't count on that. But where you're in open land in the bush and you've got no interference, you know, your 6 miles or 10 kilometers range is quite reasonable from a sensor through to the gateway. Absolutely brilliant. Here we now have another great little slide which shows the protocol landscape, and you can see how we connect, you know, from the site. So a building. So we've got controllers, we've got gateways, we've got sensors, we've got devices, all sorts of hardware, doing things, monitoring things, controlling things. And there'll be mechanical assets, chillers, pumps, HVAC, lighting, access control, all sorts of things, whatever it may be. Tracking of assets, and even tracking of people movements, whatever the case may be. Then, of course, we're picking up that via all kinds of interfaces, whether it's USB, RS485, wireless, and then, okay, how are we picking it up? Yeah, what protocol are we using? Again, Zigbee, Bluetooth, or LoRaWAN. If we can go back to that slide, please, thank you. And then we can see all the way through where we go. So, for example, we use MQTT. A lot of people do, bringing it across, whether you're using Azure or AWS or your private clouds, and all the various applications all the way through. This is really a great slide. And then, of course, in the cloud, we have our data analytics, AI, machine learning, visualization. That doesn't mean you don't have AI on the edge, because now also we're seeing a trend where we can get some AI happening in sensors and devices right on the edge as well. So there's a combination. And then at the end, we're managing things from the cloud right on the end. It's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization on the top. That's what we have on the end here. Here, we've got our energy management, we've got our remote control, we've got all the beautiful things in the control environment, though it's from edge to end to cloud and back. And with that, the sum total, what are we trying to achieve? Much greater human comfort, much greater health and well-being, and much greater carbon emission reduction and less waste. This is what we're trying to achieve here. And this is what IoT can absolutely deliver in spades. So I highly recommend, this is probably the best slide that I've got on the deck here, but it just explains it pretty well. So now we go into an area of cybersecurity, and that is a big deal. We've had so many hacks in different places, and so as part of that, you can go Wi-Fi, for example, and look there are plenty of existing networks. You've got the corporate Wi-Fi network, but it's a higher risk. It's about risk mitigation. You can't eliminate the risks, but we have to manage the risks. So by going to something like LoRaWAN, we have encryption. It is 128-bit encryption. We have authentication, and then we have MQTT going out. A combination of that, then of course your controls in the cloud. You can mitigate, not eliminate, mitigate your cyber risk, and therefore improve your risk profile. And as we go to digitize buildings into the future, again, we'll see a proliferation of people trying to hack. We've seen power grids hacked in Scandinavia. We've seen all sorts of hacks happen. Target USA, where a hacker went through a temperature sensor and got into the corporate network and stole, I think it was $100 million worth of credit cards, went into the customers of Target and got into their credit cards. So there's all sorts of risks and potential risks with this. So LoRaWAN, by its nature, is a spread spectrum. So, for example, we have a whole city block in Melbourne for a university, RMIT University in Melbourne. And actually, we've got 4 outdoor gateways covering a whole city block, which surprised me that we're able to manage it that well, and a couple of indoor gateways to cover many buildings on campus, and some of them are quite large. So LoRaWAN is an exceptional, not perfect. It has its limitations. So you're not going to do video surveillance on LoRaWAN because you're sending small packets at a time. It's low bandwidth. But the thing is, it is very practical, and it has many advantages. So the world take-up, the global take-up for this is absolutely huge. It is expanding by the minute. It is all over the globe. It is in the US, it's in Canada, it's in South America, it's in Asia, Australia, Europe. And I believe, I could be wrong, it originated out of France, I think, in the early 2013 or 14. I could be wrong with my stats on that, but some time ago, it had originated, might have come in an earlier form before that, but it's advancing in leaps and bounds. And when they developed Class C, which is your two-way traffic, that opened up the world of opportunity. So we don't only have to just monitor, but we can actually control things and do all sorts of stuff like that. So so the take up around the world is very, very high. So what are we trying to achieve here? Well, outcomes, again, with Internet of Things, we're able to achieve massive energy savings. And in this day and age, this is critical. Water savings. Water is becoming a scarce commodity. So especially in the Middle East, actually. So we're saving lots of water. I mean, we have a site, for example, a big school campus, and we've got water meters and we're finding water leaks, unusual water, and we're saving tens of thousands of litres when we find these. So better recycling, substantial reductions in maintenance, and scope 3 carbon emissions will be covered by that. But all scopes 1, 2, and 3 has heavy reductions. And of course, your health and well-being. Instead of the old sick building syndrome, which people mostly ignored, we're now starting to deal with this, and we're going to improve productivity. We're going to make places much better. And of course, then we've got data democratization and collaboration, which again can only improve, and a high level of cybersecurity in all of this. So really, IoT makes a huge difference and is only increasing to make a huge difference in what we can achieve in this planet of ours that we need to preserve. So yeah, it's about outcomes. You know, there's a lot of talk fests that I've been to, but we really need to pick up our game and do something practical. So so that's the important thing. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. So call to action. So how do we do it? Well, first we've got to realize we've got a problem. So what is your problem? Is it just the skyrocketing cost of energy, which is happening all over the world? Is it your carbon targets that you need to meet? Is it some other problem about health and well-being? Whatever it may be, but identify that and then seek your appropriate vendors or consultants, and then have a look at what can be done. And what I would recommend is conduct at least a pilot with that selected organisation, and then go forth with all the problem areas. And don't wait, because we have a saying in Australia: "She'll be right, mate." Well, she won't be right. Let's start addressing the problem now, and let's act, and let's save money. This is also an economic discussion. We're talking about economic sustainability as well as environmental sustainability. So let's take advantage of this and let's act now. And I look forward to your Q&A. Please place your Q&A into the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So thank you very much, everybody, and we look forward to your Q&A. Back to you, Wayne.
Great, thanks, Bob. Great presentation. I know gets into very technical areas, so depending on those in the audience, I mean, there's a lot to sort of digest, but certainly it covers a lot of the capabilities today, which, as you said, has evolved since 2013 or thereabouts. So 10 years in now, the technology's really evolved, and obviously the applications. It's amazing what you can do with it. So on that front, we have another presenter, Fran Raybuck, and he's going to sort of delve into some more of the technical details of the AI and kind of what that all means. Go ahead, Fran.
Okay, thanks. Great job there, Bob. It's amazing how far we've come Actually, I think since the coining of the phrase IoT during the RFID era, almost 20 years ago. It was Procter and Gamble and Kevin Ashton. He started the whole IoT thing. Anyway, I work as a chief strategy officer, and we're partners in working with GFMA and many other organizations. My LinkedIn and email is there. Let's dive in a little bit to my background. What do I have as a background here? So anyway, I'm not going to dive heavily into this. You can read it later, but I've been involved in many industry events, major industry events in various areas, mostly emerging technologies, ranging from AI, actually AI, many years ago when I was in college. I had a course in AI. I was a math major. And I wanted to do AI. The problem was the world wasn't ready. The only thing you could do in AI is probably teach it. And I wasn't quite ready. I wanted the applications there. It really has exploded and changed just in the last 6 months since the evolving open AI and chatbots. Everything in AI now seems like it comes under the chatbot area. I'm going to dig into that and show you much deeper how AI and data goes on. So again, I've done various things throughout my career with different AI and analytic techniques. The difference is this new chat area. It's known as Chat GPT, but it's AI for the rest of us. It really is very useful, but it connects into very well and merges into the whole IoT space. The other things that are making big changes, I think, in the industry overall, is that we're moving into an era where things can develop by mere mortals. AI is now becoming a tool that doesn't require an advanced necessarily math degree to use, but is open, I think, to mere mortals in a lot of ways. And I'll talk about that going through here. As far as connectivity goes, I think there's a misunderstanding, but 5G changes and 6G changes are all coming over the next couple of years. And it's not just cellular. What defines 5G? And it's not just faster, it's less latency, and it's also more devices. More devices is an important piece in connecting into the IoT space. By the way, I've seen around a couple people calling AIoT as a phrase, and if you Google it, you'll find a lot of different points in being. This integration is really just perfect. The generative AI stuff is going to impact everything. So I think it's important for facility managers to get involved in it, because beyond just IoT and technical stuff and machines, it can help them with their everyday work in creating proposals and doing emails, etc. And I can guarantee you that you will experience AI tools this year. You can't turn a newscast on, and I'd challenge you to find me a newscast that doesn't have one story talking about AI, how if it bleeds, it leads. They start to talk about the strange things that is happening. All right, let me move on. And I call it the rabbit hole because this stuff has really just sucked me in over the last 6 months. I've done a lot of things with data and analytics and AI in the past, voice and things like that, and images. But this new generative AI is important. What's important? There's lots of phrases. AI becomes a general phrase that I think is probably maybe overused, and it can be intimidating in some way. But I put together some definitions that really try to define AI, the AI field. Generative AI are things that generate new things. Artificial general intelligence are AI technologies that mimic or try to become very human-like in doing tasks that humans normally do. ChatGPT is generally what you're seeing most of the noise. That's what OpenAI is based on. That's what Microsoft is doing. That's what ChatGPT, which is partially owned there by Microsoft. Let me go to the next one there. And then you hear machine learning. Machine learning and deep learning are probably more closely related to the work that will get done and is happening in the IoT space. You saw in that long cone funnel thing that we had Bob put up there, there were a couple data tools there, and many of those data tools have AI behind them. But machine learning involves training. Deep learning is sort of a subset of machine learning, and it works a little bit differently. Let me dive into a little bit, maybe help you with some images here. Okay, so first I want to, and you can put in the chat box your answer to this. I think this is maybe a little bit eye-opening. What is the top tool used by data and AI engineers today? Programming language, Python, or ChatGPT, SAS, or SPSS, SQL, or something else. If it's something else, put it in there or put your answer in. I'm going to move on now while you sort of think about that and put some answers in there. Okay, I like to think of the funnel, if you will, or the connection, the data stream. IoT is the engine. It's the mechanisms, it's the mechanics, and it's the connectivity that is going to provide the data. And that data is raw data, and it's a variety of data. Data is more than numbers, and the data then drives the AI. So you really want to look at these things in pieces. You'll find many vendors that try to build or sell a one-stop solution across all of these. And that may not be the best strategy overall, because you may find that a general AI tool could be applied to multiple IoT projects. So again, data is more than numbers. A good example of that is you have data like video streaming and security with video is different. It requires more bandwidth, number one, but there's different ways too to do video analytics that you don't have to stream in a security application all the different images down and download a whole video stream. And this really appeared after 9/11. There was a big interest in video cameras. And you can't have a Brady Bunch panels of all the cameras to look at. It's not possible for a human to monitor the hundreds of cameras that you can have. What you need is you have something like AI image analysis that's collecting image areas. For instance, one of the applications in video analytics was it would capture and count the number of people. It would do face biometrics. It would do watch for issues where somebody puts something down and then moves on. So you got to think of data here and the data sources. The data sources are going to be coming from multiple things. Many of the things may be outside your IoT thing. For instance, utility bills or meters. Also, you might need to subscribe, or it might be embedded with the vendor, things like weather. If you're doing energy analysis, weather has to be an input into that data. And then you have other building automation systems that are currently involved. IoT is just one of the devices there. And the end result, you have the data warehouse, and magic happens there. And it starts to create and this is example, energy management information systems. It can do just simple monthly data analytics, and data analytics is important. Getting just visualization of IoT information can be very valuable. So, I mean, you have to look at the layers of implementation on the back end of how you're using data and defining data. Let me go on here, and I'm going to dive a little deeper here. So I don't want to get too deep in this, but I put these up not to confuse you, not to sort of overwhelm you, but to try to help understand. On the far right, the reinforced learning piece, that's a mathematical technique under machine learning. And most of the stuff that you're seeing in AI now, the ChatGPT stuff, comes under that. The supervised and unsupervised learning has a whole bunch of analytical techniques. The supervised means that you generally have some independent variables and you have dependent variables, and you're looking to put together a model and equation that can calculate. Unsupervised says, I have a whole bunch of data. I don't know what's dependent on what. Analyze it, and generally it's used for clustering, for looking for similar patterns. Maybe certain buildings are using more energy than other buildings. A lot of these techniques would be how you would do them. Let me go to the next one. This dives even deeper. And by the way, if you into the reinforced learning, and the reinforced learning is less involved necessarily with the IoT per se, but it's really becoming the rising star. It's the thing that's getting all the news. But I think the coattails will be, IoT will ride on the coattails of the interest in ChatGPT and reinforced learning applications. Let me go to the next one. I'm putting these slides up not to scare you and overwhelm you in any sense, but this is the depth of what's behind a lot of the AI. If you're working with IoT, you're probably going to be working mainly with supervised and or unsupervised, not necessarily reinforced learning, but that doesn't mean that you can't. So you can see here, it puts this diagram here is pretty interesting because it sort of compartmentalizes the things and creates sort of categories on the x-axis for what it's trying to do. You're either creating knowledge, you're creating planning, you're actually constructing things. And lastly, I think in these slides here. Next there. There is data platform maps, and this is where, the saying and the phrase IT plus OT, OT operational technologies, that's what all the facility engineers have been doing for years and years. And IT is traditional IT. It's SQL, it's Oracle, it's data, it's a whole bunch of things, but there's a whole bunch of structure there. And all that structure needs to be partnered with, the facility management group. So there really is a movement towards merging these two. You can see in the very middle there, machine learning is sort of a small subset here. Let me go on to the next slide. This really, I think, is a little bit better. On the left-hand side there, artificial intelligence decision trees. You're going to see hundreds of these things out there. And you're going to see many things saying, here's 100 prompts to help you with AI. Just ignore the prompt rabbit hole. There's so many things. Just get used to using ChatGPT in itself. On generative AI, I really like the other on the right-hand side, the generative AI landscape. It positions into functions different applications, text applications, image applications, coding. These generative AI products can actually write programming. Now, that doesn't mean it's always right, but it's a tremendous tool and it's going to get better and better. Okay, next one. Now, this is my last scary slide. If you really want to dig into it, I think this is appropriately called the insane app. They have a whole bunch of details on tons of different machine learning algorithms. And generally, you're not concerned about doing this unless you're trying to build something on your own. But what's important too, not to understand all these things, but if you're dealing with vendors, to begin to query them when they say, oh, we have AI in here in this product, ask them to drill into what specific technologies, what algorithms are they? And oftentimes you'll find that it is generally lower level algorithms than regression type things, maybe analysis of variance, but they don't dive very deeply. Next slide. So there is a movement, and I'm glad Bob mentioned it, and I think you're going to see this trend continue because microprocessors are getting so fast, so small. The traditional AI of a sensor and communication and then a collection at the end of the data, you're now starting to move the data collection, and not just collection, but immediate reaction to the edge meaning right inside the sensor. So the sensor will not only read information and sense a temperature, but if it suddenly drops 2 degrees, it can immediately trigger something rather than going into a back-end cluster. So many of the stuff in the edge AI space, these are some of the top things that are being driven, I think. And some of these, obviously, you may say, well, I'm not involved in supply chain optimization. And you'll be surprised. I think many facility management places, especially during the pandemic, learned that we got to really focus somewhat more on the supply chain stuff. So probably AI and IoT have done more in the artificial intelligence space for the energy sector than anything else. Energy, and the old saying that, data is the new oil. It's actually wrong, because data is much more than what the oil value is. The more data you have, the more value you have. You don't run out of data. You run out of a limited supply of oil. So data is becoming, and the applications of data, the understanding of data. And this is just sort of a wheel of different things. You can use computer vision AI to detect early cracks in pipes and things like that. As you start to do EV charging points, you're going to need AI components in there. Failure predictions are pretty obvious. New things like hydraulic turbines and welding and solar panels and geomapping, all again, very, very positive impacts there by AI. Now, here's the scary thing. AI is great in trying to build and manage and understand and control energy. The real disadvantage, and you don't hear much about this, but there's a great white paper that talks about it in deep, very, very deep, detailed numbers. The amount of carbon footprint it takes for an AI engine to figure out a model or run a model is magnitudes larger than many things. A US car that over its lifetime, the amount of fuel it consumes is dwarfed by the amount of energy used. So this right now is not a problem for most people because the AI engines are trained already and getting started. But as we do more models and more things, it's going to force a focus actually on IT things being more carbon friendly. And as we're all moving our industry into addressing the carbon problem, it becomes important. One of the things started doing, and as we're working with different companies, is we really need to do sort of an AI and IoT assessment. And there's a great guide that we use and we've modified it. It has a whole collection of checklists. And I'm not going to go into the details a lot on this, but after we go and do a lot of analysis and look at this, and this really should become a first step. You know, as you're trying to pick or find solutions, you need to find what is going to maximize your return on investment there. Where can you get the most bang for your buck? And it really is going to be a combination of AI and IoT. Some of the results, next page, we have various outputs that come out in matrix format that goes and helps organizations get a handle on what they should be controlling. It's really important to get a handle on what you have. And most organizations, and go to the next slide here. If you want to really dive deeper into this rabbit hole of AI and chat, there is no better person than really Steve Wolfram. There's a couple of great people out there, but there's a link into his book, What is ChatGPT Doing? Very short book, very detailed, has a lot of good content in the middle. You won't be disappointed in buying it. Let me go to the next slide because I want to talk about data again. So moving forward, I think the first step before you start to talk about IoT or AI is you really need to collect and understand your data, what I call asset digitization. And with Agile Handover, we've been doing that. We had a great success story that we just recently had a press release on with the University of North Carolina. They had 134 buildings and they had a variety of documents. And I'm sure many of you have the same thing. All kinds of documents, CAD documents, warranty documents, many of them scattered all over in different silos of systems. We were able, at almost the rate of one building a day, collect and organize and create an independent data layer of data that is fully searchable and fully integratable into other systems like CMMS or IWMS systems, but also is fully searchable on its own. So they can now say, hey, how many warranty documents are there on this particular HVAC system, and get the answer to that. They can see the connections there. One of the things I would suggest, if you haven't done it, is sign up for the free GPT-3 and try things. The other one is Dolly. If you do a lot of images for presentations or you want to create your own interesting images, it's a really great tool to do. And those are free. The Dolly one is free and you get, I don't know, 14 images a month or something. But it's really important that you evaluate your other software products with AI. You're going to integrate it. So, some companies will sell you the full end-to-end solution, and that may not be right because there might be a very good AI tool that can work with your current systems and future systems and the systems that you're putting in now or want to work with. And they may the dynamics of this field in new creations and new models and new tools is exploding. You should explore and expand your AI tool set. So I like to think of a call to action for you, for you to think about doing something. And some of these things you can reach out to us in the GFMA space or individually here. We can help you work with a basic getting started planning and strategy. We've done our experience in doing RFPs and working with various vendors, identification and evaluating solutions beyond or connected into these systems is the strength of what GFMA brings to the table. We can do training sessions. Training can be virtual, can be on-site, customized based on your interests. We can dive deeper into that. I mentioned the AI and IoT organization detail survey results. That would be sort of, depending on how deep you want to go, a multi-day process and evaluation, and then a next step review, et cetera. A pilot now, you can learn so much from doing low-cost pilots, and you can do some of these on your own, but I think it's best to sometimes reach out to, experts like Bob there who have done, and you're not making a big commitment. You're getting in there and you're doing a sort of proof of concepts, I like to call them. And you look at the results, and very clearly, results from the work that we've done at Agile in collecting data documentation and integrating them. University of North Carolina said they've saved easily 3 to 4 FTEs and saved 93% of the time in finding their documentation using our product. And that's asset digitization, basically doing all buildings and documents and getting them fully searchable. So that ends sort of my talk there. I think there's a couple of questions that Wayne, I think you can pitch them out.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Fran. Good discussion. Both yourself and Bob. I think you guys covered a lot of ground in the time frame we had. I do have one question came up here, which I'll ask, and it sort of dives into the LoRaWAN component. My campus is comprised of historically significant buildings on multiple vertical levels, often windowless with thick masonry walls. Can LoRa penetrate okay without becoming too expensive or too many expensive devices to install and monitor?
Okay, good question. Very good question. So there is a way to do that, and yes, it can penetrate, and it depends on the thickness of the masonry. So the thicker the masonry, the harder it gets. It's as simple as that. So there is a science to this, and if the masonry has a lot of metal in it, well, we have the Faraday cage problem as well. But let's just say that the masonry is not, if it's a more modern building and the masonry is not too thick, even if there's no windows, you can get a very good level of penetration. And when you have a campus of buildings, it actually is easier. Why? Because we can be setting up a number of outdoor gateways. In fact, some of the newer gateways have some, really great antennas, and that spreads from the roof of buildings. And then on the ground, you can have them between the buildings, and they radiate across in an omnidirectional fashion. It's a spread spectrum, so it just spreads out. And so the benefit of that is you can spread it across through the buildings. Obviously, with more masonry, you might have more of those gateways positioned in between the buildings and on top of the buildings. And where you've got weak spots, like hot spots where there's a lot of metal or a lot of masonry in some areas, maybe a basement, for example, or whatever, then we will put odd indoor gateways that will take care of that. And we can have even repeater gateways in between, which doesn't have to backhaul on 4G. We'll just repeat the signals in the building to the main gateway and out. So it can actually be addressed. Now, if the masonry is one meter thick or 1 yard thick everywhere, obviously it's going to be harder. And then we'll be doing a lot of indoor gateways. With indoor gateways, not outdoor gateways, we can penetrate inside the building, and then we go out on 4G. So there is a way to do it, and it can be done as long as it's radio tested and planned. That can certainly work. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks, Bob. We had another one about if you have a college student and they're looking to get started on learning more about IoT and AI, where would you suggest they start looking? Maybe Fran, you want to field that one?
Yeah. I was just typing. First of all, it depends. It's great to have young people get involved, I think, in this. It's a strong career path. First of all, I hope I didn't make it complicated. I meant to go deep into the AI. If you want to do AI stuff, AI tools are for use today for mere mortals. Everybody can use AI. Get into ChatGPT and just start asking questions to it. If you're a facility manager, ask it to write an RFP for you for an HVAC system. Ask it any question, just practice it. You'll see a lot of companies come out, or a lot of people say, here's 100 prompts, and prompts are nothing more than keywords to put. You can look at some of those, but they're dizzying. They are not. The new phrase is prompt engineer, and that role that is only 6 months old. So you're not going to find somebody with 2 years of experience. If you want to start with IoT, how I got started and interested was really with just small kits. Subscribe to Make Magazine. Look at Make Magazine. Go get things from there's a tremendous number of CDO, Digi, a number of small toolkits you can buy. Look at getting Arduinos or Raspberry Pis and building small sensor pieces there. So first of all, and if you want to pursue more in the AI space, start by getting sort of background in linear algebra and statistics and things like that. But everybody can use the generative AI tools today. So if you're a student, you can use it to write your history papers if you want. You can use it to go and write some initial coding if you really want to get into coding. I think the coding world is going to change drastically. You're going to have, and it has been changing, where we'll be moving towards a no code. You're able to build things by dragging and dropping images and things like that. So that's congratulations on considering either of those paths. I think both or either will take you very, very far. And you're now starting to see very quickly a lot of colleges and universities offer degrees or programs in AI. Bob, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, look, definitely. AI, ML is definitely proliferating and will proliferate exponentially. I have no doubt about that. We can see it happening around us. So when you combine AI and ML with IoT, in a systems thinking methodology, it's the sum of the whole becomes far greater than the sum of the parts. And we can see, and we expect to see some amazing outcomes. And so definitely that's the way forward. That's where it is going indeed. So well said, Fran.
Yeah, great answers to that question. We have another good question too, looking at implementation and sort of the cost analysis benefits. In a current scenario where you have an economic downturn potentially influencing, say, a board member or committee looking to implement AI or IoT just in general, where you've got budgetary constraints, what sort of strategies or arguments could you make good arguments as far as the reason to do so, the ROI, that at a high level, what would be a good sort of answer to that, question? Good idea, great technology, but we don't have the money. That's sort of that sort of notion. Bob?
Sorry, can you just elaborate on that just a bit?
Just basically with budgetary constraints, people may agree, the technology is all well and good, and it's it's been proven, but it's the cost benefit analysis, sort of how do you make good arguments to say it's worth finding the money now under budgetary constraints, yet what are the ROI in terms of benefits of doing that?
Okay, yeah, look, that's a good question, and it's quite baffling to me that many people can't see the benefits, because when you put a business case forward and you can say we can get you an ROI of 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, it's a pretty good payback, and you're contributing to your carbon emission reduction as well as your economic improvements. And it's strange because where it can be fully financed, so from day one, there can be savings made on a lease kind of arrangement for the whole project. Yet companies will say, oh, well, our accounting doesn't allow for that. We have to wait to get a capital budget. That might take 2 or 3 years. Meanwhile, money's being wasted, and carbon is being wasted, and we're increasing our carbon footprint. So the crazy situation we have here is, oh, well, look, it's a bit too hard. We've got to spend a couple of years. It's a lot of work to get the budgets done. Oh, look, yeah, your business case is fantastic, a 2.5 year payback. on this, $500,000 project is fantastic, but, it's too hard, even though you're offering to not to in fact save money from day one under a lease arrangement. The company doesn't do that. It's not in their accounting practice. So guess what? Nothing happens. How does that work? I mean, that's the antithesis of the circular economy. It's the opposite. And then you have people focusing, no, what the cheapest price up front. I'm sure you've never heard that one, and everyone goes out to tender. Oh yeah, look, we've got other, things we do consider, but in the end, 95% of it is all about the price. Tick the boxes, you get the price. And what happens is they don't take into consideration the costs to run this over 10 years through the life cycle and the energy and the carbon component. This must change. So the procurement system is broken. That's a fundamental issue that must be addressed because we can show an economic benefit immediately. So this is an interesting dilemma that must be addressed in that whole procurement methodology, because the procurement managers don't get gold on the life cycle savings over 10 years. They get gold on their budget, on time, on budget. This is a fundamental issue that must be dealt with, because how can we have sustainability in ESG when you've got a procurement system that's busted?
Hey, Bob, couldn't we do a pilot project out of O&M? That's a much smaller spoonful to offer from FM to the board.
Yeah, that could be done. You find something that may be $100,000 project or something, a smaller building somewhere that could be done and prove it out. Absolutely.
Evidence is convincing, and people getting accustomed to a capability, accustomed to a vendor, accustomed to a concept. That's very convincing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's more about the looking at the bigger picture and even the midterm, not necessarily the longer term on a life cycle, but like in 2 to 3 years, if you can achieve, on a good business case, make a successful argument as to why you should do that, and you look at the payback and several factors, and it's very attractive, then it doesn't have to be within the constraints of a current fiscal year window. If it's like 2 or 3 years and it's something that's worthy of exploration, you can make a successful argument. And I think you're right. Start small and grow from there. Get some quick wins. A pilot project doesn't have to be the whole campus, the whole building, or do something to show a proof of concept, whatever it might be, but to flesh out and demonstrate in that particular site or building that this is viable, and then you can always add phase 2, phase 3, and grow from there. So really good points. We had a related question, similar to saying, what does the FM require in terms of time, personnel, capabilities, and budget? So there's your financial issues again, to use an integrated digital environment featuring sophisticated analytics and AI. A lot of folks think this is overwhelming. Only the larger companies can afford to do this, or have in-house staff, or the budgets for consulting or whatever. What would that be even at a much smaller level, or for the average smaller or the mid-sized company to implement this for their local FM department?
I think initially it doesn't take a lot. Like for a smaller company, you might have a consulting piece initially that's only $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, not some ridiculous $100,000 that a multinational might pay or more. So it doesn't have to be big bickies. It can be just a small assignment with small dollars that will provide a pathway forward and solutions that can make really an impressive difference. So I think it can be done very sustainably. Fran, David, any comments from you?
Yeah, a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of questions about concerns on budgets and selling it. First of all, on the AI space, somebody was asking, hey, how can I sell this or tell people at the top, the C-level? I can guarantee you the C-level people are talking about AI. They're using it, they're playing with it, they're understanding it. So my suggestion is you should be a leader. You should start to use it, understand it. You now have a connection, a mind connection. They now understand AI, or at least a piece of AI. You now can go and talk to them and say, look, we can use this not just to go and ask questions, which is typically they're probably using ChatGPT, And there are many other tools out there. You go into you're not, most people here aren't doing marketing, but it's going to change marketing. You have to write SOPs, standard operating procedures. ChatGPT can do that very well. And some of this becomes a learning experience. I can sit down, I can show you many things, but the real learning experience comes when you say, you know, I wonder what, or how can I do this? It's mind-blowing. I mean, I know a lot of things when I'm amazed. Well, I'll give you a quick example on coding. You know, it writes code. So people were talking about how it was doing Python code and things like that. So I thought, I'm gonna try this one. I used to work with a language called APL, which has all Greek letters and all, and very unusual. I thought it's not going to be. I asked it to write code to do something in APL, and it came out and did it. I was just blown away that it had that basic knowledge to go. I also did it with I did stuff with Lotus Notes and Lotus Script. I asked it to write a particular program in Lotus Script to do something. And it was right. It did it. Now, the other thing to be careful of, I just warned, ChatGPT sometimes lies. The term hallucination you'll hear. It makes things up. And why does it make things up? Because it doesn't necessarily quite understand fully the question. But if you're an expert and you understand things, it's a great tool because you can go and monitor. If you're not using ChatGPT just to explore stuff, you got to. And we can do sort of some introductory stuff. And I have a general question for the audience. So you can put it in the chat. There's many other things that our group is involved with. What is the next thing beyond this that you would like to hear the GFMA group talk about? You know, addressing sustainability, diving into other areas, or getting deeper into you know, connections, you know, the 5G, the LoRa, explaining some of that. What do you want? What do you need to learn?
Yeah, good points. We have the chat disabled because we just had the Q&A, Fran, but we will reach out and certainly, which will be available, as well as the presentation. So we'll have that for everybody and some other takeaways. So happy to provide that. We've just come up over the 1 hour mark. I think we've had a good, really good discussion in a short time frame and covered a lot of ground initially, but we've just scratched the surface. As you've alluded to, Fran and Bob, you've really laid out the roadmap or at a high level and sort of here's kind of what you're looking at without it being, it's a balance between, you know, showcasing kind of what's out there in that technology space, but without overwhelming, and just creating a clear path to embarking on that journey. So much more to speak about, and we can focus on some key areas. But I think this was really just to certainly pique the interest. It's been a lot about this topic, and various parties have had you know, a lot of good information shared over the last few years, and it's really evolving. So it's a good time to get embarking on this path, and we look forward to having subsequent webinars, and we will focus on some of the areas. We'll look for feedback, and just want to thank everybody for attending. We've had a good attendance that stayed with us through the whole hour, and we look forward to the future ones in the near future. Thanks again,
Wayne,
everybody.
and we will be making sending out links to these slide sets and the recording and so on. Yeah,
we will. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.